Ollantaytambo is a gigantic complex located in the Sacred Valley of the Incas northwest of the city of Cusco and possesses one of the most precise megalithic polygonal masonry in the world. One of the most famous structures in Ollantaytambo is the Temple of the Sun. There, we can find remarkable stonework, which includes large slabs of pink granite, intricately carved and precisely aligned. The stone blocks weigh between 50 and 70 tons, and they are fitted together with such precision that not even a sheet of paper can slide between them. This precision, along with the scale and the transportation of these stone blocks, indicates a highly advanced level of technological and engineering sophistication that was not yet available to the Incas. One of the stones has a remarkably precise pattern that resembles a step pyramid. This is actually a Chacana cross, an ancient Andean symbol that can be seen on various megalithic sites all across South America. The oldest Chacana representation was found in Bolivia at the archaeological site of Tiwanaku. And if you look closer at the surface of the other blocks at the Temple of the Sun, you can notice that although they are exceptionally smooth, there are these scoop marks on their surface. This led many to believe that the creators of these structures had some kind of lost technology that allowed them to soften the hard pink granite and manipulate it with ease. We can see the same thing in various other places in the world, including Stonehenge and the Aswan Quarry in Egypt. In a drawing of the 6 monoliths made in 1843 by the German painter Johann Moritz Rugendas, we can see that there used to be more stones on the top of the structures, which are now missing. And who knows what the complete structure looked like tens of thousands of years ago when it was initially created. Between the 6 massive monoliths, there are smaller stones intricately fitted together. These stones vary in size and shape, but are precisely cut to interlock tightly with the monoliths, creating a seamless wall that is indestructible even by the numerous earthquakes that are common in this area. We can also see various knobs on the stones, a feature which is also observed all across the world from China and Japan to Egypt, almost as if all of these sites were built by the same builders. And just as we observe the precise fittings with no gaps, if we go behind the structure, we can see inferior stonework, which looks almost primitive compared to the main wall. Many researchers believe that the inferior stonework is the actual work of the Inca civilization, which found this prehistoric site and built upon it. If we observe the entire structure from above, we can clearly see that in the distant past, this was some sort of gigantic building that served an important purpose. The Inca people tried to repair as much as they could from the old construction, but their methods were simply not as advanced. This is why we can see many gigantic stone blocks scattered around the site, as if the complex was demolished by some cataclysmic event that destroyed and dispersed most of the structures. Some of the blocks are even half buried. The Inca never managed to move these blocks, which had been left there for thousands of years. Some of these multi-ton granite blocks have gigantic knobs, and between them, we can see more Inca repair work. Many of the blocks are perfectly rectangular, with straight 90-degree edges and smooth surfaces. Another key site of the complex is the Gateway of the Gods. This section also predates the Inca by thousands of years. Once again, we see massive, perfectly smooth granite blocks with knobs on them. The stones used are expertly cut and fit together. On the top side of the gateway, we can see the inferior Inca repairs made of small, rough stones and clay mortar, which have nothing in common with the precision of the old megaliths. The gateway continues into a wall on one side, which is truly astonishing and fits together like a puzzle. There are numerous perfectly parallel cavities on the wall, all with the exact same size and dimension. At some parts of the polygonal wall where there are blocks missing, we once again see crude Inca repairs. The precision with which these blocks are cut and assembled suggests the use of sophisticated technology and methods that were not available to the Inca even at its peak. Does this mean that the ancients had advanced knowledge, potentially even some sort of machinery? Many researchers speculate that the prehistoric megalithic builders possessed the capability to heat and melt stone, allowing them to mold it into the precise shapes needed, resulting in the perfect fitting of the blocks. Just take a look at this fitting and the precision it showcases. In the distant past, there was most likely a second wall on the other side, as evidenced by the foundational pieces and the three-dimensional interlocking of the stones. We can see dozens of scattered stone blocks on the ground, with many more buried. On some of the blocks, there are unusual keystone cuts visible, likely designed to secure the blocks together using a type of clasp. This is another ancient megalithic feature that can be seen all across the world. If you look closer at the cut, you can see clear core drill hole marks. What kind of drilling technology could leave such marks on pink granite? On another stone, we see an incredibly precise saw cut going through it. It appears that something sliced the stone, making a perfectly flat surface and then stopping. The thickness seems very narrow. To cut granite in such a precise way, you would need a material harder than granite such as diamond. And even then, such narrow cut seems impossible. The Inca had only bronze chisels and stone hammers, so who managed to create this precise laser-like cut on this stone? Observing from above, we can see this half-buried giant granite which has numerous machine marks on it. Although the stone is highly eroded, the clean marks left on it can be seen with ease. It's unknown what kind of tool or machine left these traces on the granite or what their purpose is. On the top of the rock, there are additional carvings that look perfectly rectangular and square, with precise 90-degree angles. Considering such a large part of this rock is underground, just imagine how many more clues could be buried beneath the earth. At the entrance of Ollantaytambo, numerous stone blocks are displayed. All of them are clearly artificially modified, showcasing precise cuts and shapings, while others look like they were somehow melted and deformed. Look at the precise angles of this giant granite block. Who knows where was its original location and to what kind of construction it once fitted? And look at this rectangular block, which has numerous scoop marks on it, almost like it was softened somehow and reshaped. What kind of technology can modify stone like that? Take a look at this incredible trapezoidal fountain and the precise carvings it showcases. The carvings are on 3 levels, and each level has perfect 90-degree angles and smooth surfaces. These cuts look very similar to those we've seen in sites like Puma Punku in Bolivia. On the bottom 2 sides of the fountain, there are the remains of 2 knobs which are now broken. Many noted that the surface of the granite used for the creation of the fountains exhibits piezoelectric properties, and by swiftly running your finger along the edge, you can influence the flow of the water. There are many demonstrations from visitors who manage to even completely stop the flow of the water using just this method. One of the best examples of advanced ancient technology can be seen on the rock walls of Ollantaytambo. If we examine the existing andesite rock on the site, we can see that it was cut and altered in numerous places. Here we see that large parts of the rock have been extracted, leaving a remarkably smooth surface and, strangely, large knobs like those found on the granite stones. The material was removed with such precision that we hardly find scratches. Considering the rock is made of andesite, an extremely strong and hard material, the work we see is incredible. Additional knobs can be seen in higher sections of the rock, also accompanied by smooth and precise cuts. Next to these knobs are also cavities carved into the wall. And take a look at these strange marks left on the stone. What kind of technology could leave such marks? Similar channel marks can be found on other sections of the site as well. Here in the distance, we can see 3 niches, which some believe were traces of some sort of giant escalator. At the western edge of Ollantaytambo, we find that the ancient builders fit stones into the bedrock itself with astonishing accuracy and created recesses of unknown function. In this particular location, we can see that the ancients left this strange yet extremely precise crisscross pattern. These patterns, according to many, seem as if they were left behind by some sort of machinery after the slabs were removed. The grid is perfectly symmetrical and the channels are uniform, measuring mere millimeters. And here we see another interesting pattern. What kind of technology could have left behind such patterns thousands of years ago? Some have even ventured out and said that these fascinating crisscross patterns are, in fact, marks that could have been created by some sort of laser-like apparatus or saw machine, pointing to the possibility that the prehistoric builders had in their possession long-lost technology that allowed them to quarry with ease massive andesite and granite blocks. If we examine the so-called Wall of the Living Rock, we can see huge rectangular sections of the stone removed from the mountain with such accuracy that we can't find any scratch on the surface. What's even stranger is that the corners are not sharp as you would expect if you chip the rock, but are actually smooth, which makes it even harder to explain how this was done. The smoothness of the andesite makes many to believe that some sort of vitrification process was used. According to the official narrative, the mountains were used as quarries, but several intriguing questions arise from this. Firstly, the cut marks are perfectly square, which is surprising. One might expect the stone to be knocked out of the rock face first and then squared as modern stone cutters would do, which is not the case here. And on many parts of the rock, we see knobs, which suggests this was something more than a quarry. Secondly, the surfaces of the cuts are glassy smooth, not rough as one would anticipate from sawn or chiseled surfaces. Another question concerns the height at which these stones were cut. Why were the rocks cut from places that are sometimes 130 feet above the valley floor? How were they brought down? Although there are some stairways cut into the rock face that allow people to walk up to the quarry site, there are no signs of ramps or skid tracks that could have been used to transport the megaliths. If the stones had simply been dropped to the valley floor, they would have shattered. Lastly, how were these stones transported from one side of the valley to the other? The quarry site is miles away from locations like the Sun Temple. There is no evidence of any roads in the valley that could have been used to transport such massive loads. Additionally, on many parts of the rock, we see smooth channels which probably had running water in ancient times. With everything we have shown you so far, do you really believe all of these traces of advanced technology, the precise megastructures, and everything else on the site are the work of a primitive civilization that used stone hammers and bronze chisels? Or is it possible that Ollantaytambo, along with other ancient sites around the world, holds evidence of a far more advanced civilization that existed long before the Incas? The precise megalithic structures, advanced stone-cutting techniques, and the mysterious transportation of massive blocks suggest knowledge and technology far beyond what the Inca civilization is known to have possessed. The presence of smooth, glassy surfaces and perfect cuts in hard stone materials like granite, which are incredibly difficult to work with even using modern tools, raises significant questions about the methods used by the ancient builders. Moreover, the geographic challenges of transporting these enormous stones from quarries high in the mountains, across rivers, and up to the construction sites without visible signs of roads or ramps further complicate our understanding. How could a civilization lacking advanced machinery achieve such feats? The various repairs and modifications made by the Incas, which appear primitive in comparison to the original constructions, indicate that they inherited and repurposed these sites rather than creating them from scratch. Despite that, the official historical narrative of Ollantaytambo attributes its construction primarily to the Inca civilization, specifically during the reign of Emperor Pachacuti in the 15th century AD. The site is thought to have served as a fortress, protecting the sacred valley from invaders, and as an agricultural hub, utilizing its terraced fields to produce food for the Inca Empire. When we call the works of the Inca civilization primitive, what we mean is that they are primitive compared to the advanced megalithic builders of old. We must remember that, for their time, the Inca were incredibly sophisticated. The Inca civilization, which thrived from the early 15th century until the Spanish conquest in the 16th century, demonstrated remarkable achievements in architecture, agriculture, and engineering. One of the most impressive aspects of Inca ingenuity is the agricultural terraces they built on Ollantaytambo. These terraces, known as anden, were constructed by creating flat platforms into the steep Andean mountainsides, creating arable land where none previously existed. The terraces were built with retaining walls made of carefully fitted small, rough stones and clay mortar, which provided stability and prevented landslides. Each terrace had a complex irrigation system that included channels and aqueducts to direct water from mountain streams to the crops. The Inca ingeniously designed these systems to ensure that water flowed evenly across all the terraces, preventing waterlogging and drought conditions. This careful water management was essential in the high-altitude environment where the climate could be harsh and unpredictable. The terraces look so massive that some people even call them staircases for giants, which, of course, is not true. The Inca built numerous storehouses, or colques, on the hillsides around Ollantaytambo. These structures were used to store surplus food, such as maize, potatoes, and quinoa, which were crucial for sustaining the population during times of shortage. On the opposite side of the town, the Inca constructed several structures on Temple Hill, also known as Pinca Luna. These include additional storehouses and possibly ceremonial buildings. The location offered strategic views of the valley and the main ceremonial center, reinforcing the site's importance. In summary, the Inca contributions to Ollantaytambo proves that they had an incredible architectural prowess, advanced agricultural techniques, and sophisticated urban planning. Still, comparing the Inca work with the megalithic prehistoric work reveals a stark contrast in technological capabilities and construction techniques. To this day, it is unknown who these old builders were and what the purpose of their megalithic constructions was. It's unknown how old they are, but many believe they are at least 12,000 years old, if not older. This means that the site was most likely built by an advanced civilization that disappeared after the cataclysms caused by the Younger Dryas event. Whether the truth lies buried beneath the earth or hidden in the intricate stonework, Ollantaytambo remains one of the most remarkable ancient sites on our planet. Far from the bustling tourist paths that lead to Machu Picchu or Ollantaytambo in the remote highlands of Peru's Sacred Valley lies a mysterious site hidden away within a rock cave. This site is called Naupa Iglesia, or more accurately, Naupa Huaca. This mysterious and unexplained structure is believed to be a prehistoric site left by a civilization far more ancient and far more advanced than the known Inca civilization that inhabited the region. Halfway up the steep ravine, an inverted V-shaped entrance has been meticulously carved into the mountainside, inviting curious explorers to delve into the mysteries hidden within. Yet, as you walk into the cave, you'll immediately see that the entrance is blocked off by a rubble of stones, with additional stone wall constructed for structural integrity. These stones have prevented further exploration of what lies beyond for centuries. Were the Incas trying to protect something sacred or something dangerous within? The answers remain hidden, but the questions continue to arise as we explore the visible parts of the site. Near the blocked entrance, there's a meticulously carved false door, seamlessly integrated into the rock wall. This false door defies anything we knew about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations. What kind of technology or machine was used to slice the bedrock with such laser-like precision to create this shallow door? The false door was carved from the notoriously hard andesite stone. Andesite, with a hardness rating of around 7 on the Mohs scale, is comparable to granite, making it incredibly difficult to work with. The precision evident in the carving of the false door is nothing short of astonishing, considering that cutting and shaping andesite rock with such accuracy is a task that would be difficult even with modern technology. The stone is resistant to fracturing and does not yield easily to tools made from softer materials. The traditional methods of the Inca civilization involved stone or copper tools, which would likely result in rough, uneven surfaces and would struggle to achieve the sharp, clean lines seen in the false door. The sheer precision of the angles, the smoothness of the surface, and the lack of tool marks suggest that an alternative and far superior method was used to achieve this. Jay from the Voyager TV channel made a remarkable documentary on the site with the help of Helder from the Megalithic Evidence channel. They used a field microscope to inspect the surface of the stone to see if there were any marks from chiseling. They were shocked to see that instead of chisel marks, there appeared to be layers of melted andesite, which had transformed into a glassy, obsidian-like surface. This discovery led them to question the kind of heat necessary to achieve such a transformation. To melt andesite, which is a volcanic rock primarily composed of plagioclase feldspar and pyroxene, into obsidian, extremely high temperatures are required. Andesite typically melts at temperatures around 1,000 degrees Celsius or 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. However, to transform it into an obsidian-like material, the heat would need to be even more intense, likely reaching temperatures in excess of 1,200 degrees Celsius or 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. This kind of heat is far beyond what ancient or even early modern humans could produce with traditional methods such as wood or coal fires. This observation suggests that the surface of the andesite was subjected to some kind of unknown, intense heat source. The exact method or source of this high temperature remains a topic of speculation and investigation, adding to the mystery of the site and the advanced capabilities of the builders. It seems nothing about this site was created by chance. The cave ceiling has been remarkably cut with precision, as if effortlessly sliced, despite being at an altitude of 9,800 feet on the side of a ravine. The surface has been smoothed to perfection, forming two distinct and deliberate angles, 60 degrees and 52 degrees. Interestingly, these specific angles are found together in only one other place on Earth, the slope angles of the two major pyramids at Giza. The measurements of the main chamber are far from random. Its length-to-height ratio is precisely 3:1, forming a perfect musical fifth in the second octave. Meanwhile, the ratio of the alcove is 5:6, producing a minor third. The 5:6 ratio is both unusual and filled with information. It mirrors the Earth's movement, where the planet's pole completes a full axial rotation every 25,920 years, while the equator's tilt shifts by 4 degrees every 21,000 years, resulting in a 5:6 ratio. This precise calculation of Earth's motion is also found in another remarkable structure, Egypt's bent pyramid, where the slope angles encode the same mathematical relationship. Just like with the Great Pyramid of Giza, the geometry of Naupa Iglesia shows a detailed understanding of astronomy, with specific angles and mathematical ratios everywhere. But considering all of this, we can't help but wonder, what is the true purpose of this structure? Why put such incredible effort into creating a door that leads to nowhere? In the ancient Quechua language, the word Naupa translates to ancient or old, often used to refer to something that is primordial or from the distant past. The term Huaca holds a deeper, more spiritual meaning. Huacas were often considered as places where the divine interacted with the earthly realm, serving as a bridge between the physical world and the world of the gods or ancestors. Therefore, the name Naupa Iglesia can be interpreted as ancient sacred place or old sacred site. For this reason, many believe these false doors are some kind of portals that can generate wormholes and allow space-time travel. Others believe they are not physical portals, but rather metaphysical gateways that will enable your consciousness to bridge between different realms. This is why the site has become an increasingly popular destination for those seeking spiritual enlightenment, healing, and connection to ancient energies. The site, often described as a place of high vibration, draws individuals from around the world who are attuned to spiritual practices such as meditation, energy healing, and ancestral worship. Naupa Iglesia is considered an energy vortex, a place where the Earth's energy is particularly strong. Visitors believe that standing in or near these vortexes can lead to profound spiritual healing and transformation. Many people report feeling intense energy at the site, which they interpret as a gateway to higher consciousness or as a means to connect with their inner selves. Some visitors report feeling a direct connection to star beings or cosmic forces while meditating or performing rituals at the site, claiming they receive messages or guidance from these higher intelligence. In Andean cosmology, there are certain sites believed to be acting as portals or connections between different realms. Perhaps this is why the stonework at Naupa Iglesia shares striking similarities with the styles seen in Cusco, like Ollantaytambo and Puma Punku. What these sites have in common is the ancient myth of a traveling builder god, Viracocha, who, along with 7 shining ones, is said to have appeared at Tiwanaku following a great flood 10,000 years ago to aid in the reconstruction of humanity. Intriguingly, this same group is mentioned in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and all across the world. Not surprisingly, the same false doors can be found in these regions as well. Are the similarities between all of these sites scattered around the globe just mere coincidence? Considering the remarkable effort required to carve them, their design surely had a very important meaning or even some kind of function. But let's go back to Naupa Iglesia. Right below the portal door, we can see the rough remains of what looks like a missing foundation that was apparently destroyed. On the right side of the cave, we can see the remains of another precise carving, with the carving continuing on the other side of this piece of rock. It appears a massive catastrophic event destroyed this site, dispersing all of the missing rock pieces. Who knows what the true scale of the site truly looked like thousands of years ago? Facing right at the entrance of the cave, there's the most remarkable structure of Naupa, the so-called altar. This mind-blowing megalith was carved from bluestone, and this is the only outcrop of bluestone found in the entire region. Bluestone, standing out in stark contrast against the surrounding sandstone, contains a type of crystal prized for its exceptional piezoelectric properties. For this reason, bluestone was once used in early radio receivers. In addition to its ability to generate electrical charges under mechanical stress, the rock is also magnetic, adding to its intriguing natural qualities. The natural magnetism and piezoelectric qualities of the megalith suggest that it was deliberately chosen for some kind of purpose that was far more significant than what we typically associate with ancient megaliths. The surfaces are incredibly flat, and the angles between the cuts are sharp and clean. These right-angled niches and edges are so exact that they seem almost mathematically perfect, a hallmark of advanced stoneworking techniques not commonly associated with the Inca or pre-Inca cultures, which traditionally used bronze or stone tools. The altar contains a series of niches that are perfectly rectangular, with sharp, defined corners. Creating such niches in hard stone would require not only precision, but also the ability to control the shape and size of the cuts with a high degree of accuracy. Bronze tools would struggle to achieve such sharp internal angles without chipping or creating imperfections. We also see two large knobs on the structure, making it very similar to the trapezoidal fountain we showed you at Ollantaytambo. The fountain also has carvings on several levels, together with the remains of two knobs which are now broken. Although not from bluestone but from granite, the fountain also exhibits piezoelectric properties, and by swiftly running your finger along the edge, you can influence the flow of the water. Unfortunately, the altar at Naupa was blown up by the Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century, who put dynamite in this hole, completely shattering the upper part of the structure. This was the fate of many advanced prehistoric structures that were seen as a threat to the superiority of the Christian nations of the era. Interestingly, the Spanish invaders did not have the technology to drill such a hard stone at such a depth, which suggests that the hole was most likely part of the original structure. Looking closer at the drill hole, we can see there are perfectly spaced, continuous spiral grooves. This pattern is more akin to the marks left by modern machines, such as a rapidly rotating drill. But the altar demonstrates not only intricate craftsmanship but also precise alignments with celestial bodies. The azimuths of the three chambers of the altar are all aligned with different celestial events like the rising of Sirius, the winter solstice, and different constellations. The persistent mystery of what is the exact use for the Naupa and whether it's some kind of portal, physical or spiritual, remains unsolved. In fact, the true builders of the site are also unknown. According to mainstream historians, the site is attributed to the Inca civilization. However, we can easily distinguish the Incas' own contributions from the far more advanced megalithic structures. The Inca, known for their use of rough, mortarless stonework and bricks made from clay or adobe, attempted to mimic the intricate and precise designs of the ancient megaliths. Their constructions, while impressive in their own right, pale in comparison to the precision and craftsmanship of the older work found at Naupa. The megalithic carvings, with their smooth surfaces, sharp angles, and impeccable geometry, are far beyond the capabilities of the Incas' Bronze Age tools, or the technology of any other known civilization from that time period. In fact, they will be challenging to replicate even today with our modern technology. What are your theories on the remarkable structures of Naupa? Do you believe this was some kind of prehistoric megalithic structure that served a highly technological purpose, such as a physical or spiritual portal? And do you think this was the work of the Inca or a civilization far more ancient and sophisticated? Everyone's heard of the famous Machu Picchu in Peru, yet few know that its architecture features some remarkable characteristics, like the extremely precise polygonal masonry. The strange scoop marks evidence of stone softening technology, the exact solar and celestial alignments, the sophisticated hydraulic system of the site that rivals modern hydraulics, the secret chambers, the excavation of which is forbidden, and, mysteriously, the numerous discoveries of strange, elongated skulls that do not resemble any known human species. Machu Picchu, the famed Inca citadel perched high in the Peruvian Andes, is well known for its stunning stone architecture. Many of its structures feature massive megalithic stone blocks fitted together with extraordinary precision, without any mortar. These walls, with blocks weighing several tons each, are so tightly joined that even a knife blade cannot be inserted between the stones. In this demonstration, a tiny gauge measuring 0.09 millimeters was used, and it still didn't fit in between the gaps. This remarkable construction has fueled both mainstream admiration of Inca engineering and alternative theories that an earlier advanced civilization built the megalithic core of Machu Picchu, a civilization far predating the Inca themselves, who most likely inherited the site. Proponents of such theories point to the difference between the finely fitted cyclopean masonry and the cruder wall repairs, composed of smaller stones and mud, suggesting the latter were later repairs by the Incas on a far older site. The pre-Inca construction was built from white granite containing quartz crystal. Quartz is 7 out of 10 on the scale of hardness, which means bronze tools can't even scratch the surface of these massive blocks, the largest of which weighs around 50 tons. So how is it possible that the Inca quarried, transported, shaped, and fitted these giant granite blocks with such astonishing precision? The true capabilities of the Inca are clearly seen in the small stones glued together with clay, creating a stark contrast with the older megalithic constructions. Take a look at the lower portion of this wall and doorway, consisting of monumental stones meticulously interlocked without gaps, whereas the upper portion is filled in with smaller rubble stones and mud mortar, a visibly lower quality repair construction added on a much later timeline. It's interesting to note that this doorway faces exactly true north, indicating that these were aligned to show the movements of the sun during the daytime. Unlike magnetic north, which shifts over time with the wandering of Earth's magnetic field, true north is fixed, anchored to the axis of Earth's rotation and the position of the celestial pole. To align a structure perfectly with it requires either advanced astronomical observations or some unknown surveying technology. Mainstream archaeology insists that the Inca, and any known pre-Inca builders, had no compasses, no telescopes, and no advanced instruments capable of calculating true cardinal points with such accuracy. Perched on the highest terrace of Machu Picchu's sacred sector stands the Intihuatana stone, a carved granite monolith whose very name means the place to tie up the sun. It is widely considered the cosmic heart of Machu Picchu, and its form, placement, and orientation reveal a sophisticated knowledge of astronomy. Its upper surface is sculpted into a series of planes, angles, and notches, with the central feature being a rectangular pillar that rises about 1 meter high. The planes of the stone correspond to cardinal directions, and its pillar is not arbitrary. It is oriented to celestial movements. The Intihuatana stone was used as a solar clock. Its edges and pillar cast shadows that shift predictably with the sun's position in the sky. At the equinoxes, the midday sun stands directly overhead, and the pillar casts almost no shadow at all. This phenomenon would have allowed the ancient astronomers to mark the changing of the seasons precisely. At the solstices, the shadow falls at extreme angles, marking the longest and shortest days of the year. Some researchers, like Brian Forster, believe the Intihuatana's angles and planes could encode more complex astronomical data, such as the movements of the Pleiades star cluster. Alternative theorists suggest the stone functioned as an energy device, harnessing geomagnetic or telluric currents, a more speculative but popular idea among visitors who claim to feel a vibration near the stone. Another strange mystery is that on some of the pre-Inca stonework, we see these strange scoop marks, almost like someone softened the stone, melting it, and then removing parts of it. The same scoop marks can be seen on various other prehistoric megastructures around the world. The most notable characteristic, which is also a worldwide phenomenon with prehistoric megastructures, is the knobs seen on some of the stone blocks. These knobs appear in structures in Peru, Bolivia, China, Egypt, and many other places around the globe, and their true purpose is still unknown. Among the stone marvels of Machu Picchu, the Temple of the Sun, also called the Torreon, meaning the tower, is perhaps the most iconic and mysterious. It is one of the few buildings in the citadel with a curved wall built with the finest stonework, smooth, tightly fitted granite blocks that demonstrate the highest craftsmanship of the builders. The temple sits at the heart of the site, elevated above other structures, reinforcing its role as a center of astronomical activity. The tower contains several trapezoidal windows cut with extraordinary precision. These windows are not random. They are astronomically aligned, designed to track the sun's movements across the sky. Nestled beneath the great stone tower of the Sun Temple, we find the Temple of Mother Earth. The temple lies in a subterranean chamber, a natural cave that was transformed into a finely crafted space by lining and shaping its walls with stonework. The walls of the cave were partly lined with finely cut granite blocks, seamlessly integrated with the raw bedrock. The joints are tight, often so precise that they require no mortar, showing the same mastery as Machu Picchu's elite buildings. Many believe that some of the stones on the sides were somehow melted to get this extremely bent, irregular shape. The scale of Machu Picchu is astonishing, and if you visit the site, it will take you roughly 3 hours to fully explore it, as there are hundreds of rooms, passageways, terraces, and possibly secret chambers, as it's believed that 60% of Machu Picchu is still underground. In 2010, the French engineer David Crespi visited Machu Picchu and turned his attention to one of the citadel's most iconic structures, the Temple of the Three Windows. This temple, part of the Sacred Plaza, is known for its 3 perfectly cut trapezoidal windows looking east toward the rising sun. But Crespi wasn't looking at the windows. He was studying the stone wall at the back of the structure, which struck him as suspicious. Unlike other parts of Machu Picchu's megalithic architecture, this back wall seemed to serve no clear architectural purpose. To Crespi's trained eye, it looked less like a solid barrier and more like a sealed doorway, a blockage possibly hiding an entrance into deeper chambers. Realizing the implications, Crespi alerted Peruvian archaeological authorities about what he believed could be a significant discovery: perhaps a hidden passage leading beneath the Temple of the Three Windows. His warnings, however, were largely ignored. Official teams offered no follow-up, perhaps reluctant to disturb the sacred site or skeptical of what lay behind the stonework. But Crespi was not convinced it was a dead end. After years of inaction, he reached out to Thierry Jamin, a French archaeologist already well known for his work in Peru, especially his explorations of Inca and pre-Inca sites across the Amazonian Andes. In April 2012, Jamin received authorization to carry out a non-invasive geophysical survey of the area. His team used ground-penetrating radar, a technology capable of revealing cavities, voids, and anomalies beneath solid surfaces. The results were astonishing. The scans indicated the presence of a chamber beneath the Temple of the Three Windows, accessible via what appeared to be a sealed staircase. Even more intriguingly, the radar suggested the chamber contained a concentration of metallic objects. The readings were consistent with deposits of gold and silver, the sacred metals of the Inca elite. Despite the remarkable radar data, Jamin's request to excavate was denied by the Peruvian government. The Ministry of Culture cited preservation concerns, arguing that invasive digging could destabilize the fragile architecture of Machu Picchu. To this day, the chamber remains sealed and unexplored. No official excavation has ever been permitted, and the findings remain in limbo, acknowledged but never acted upon. This silence has only added to the mystery. Why, many ask, would authorities not pursue such a potentially groundbreaking discovery? Some argue it is an abundance of caution. Others whisper about political or cultural sensitivities, fearing what it might mean to open the tomb of the Inca world's most sacred sanctuary. The story resonates with similar discoveries around the world, like the use of radar at Giza, revealing hidden voids in the Great Pyramid, the scans at Tiwanaku and Puma Punku, suggesting underground galleries, the discovery of sealed tunnels beneath Teotihuacan's Temple of the Feathered Serpent, filled with metallic spheres. In each case, technology has revealed mysteries beneath the stone, but excavation lags behind, leaving the world tantalized by what might be waiting below. Machu Picchu sits precariously on a mountain ridge, nearly 2,500 meters, 8,200 feet above sea level, in a place of heavy rainfall. Without a masterful drainage system, the citadel's terraces, temples, and plazas would have been destroyed by landslides, flooding, or erosion long ago. Yet, Machu Picchu's structures still stand. The reason? A sophisticated hydraulic and drainage network built by its engineers. Across the site run stone-lined drainage canals that collected rainwater and runoff from roofs. These channels snake through plazas and stairways, directing water away from structures. In some places, they join with the ceremonial water fountains, a sequence of 16 stone-carved fountains that also carried water from a nearby spring. Even today, Machu Picchu is considered a hydrological masterpiece. During storms, water flows off the terraces and plazas rapidly without causing flooding. The subsoil filters reduce erosion, so the terraces remain stable after centuries. Modern engineers who studied the site, like Kenneth Wright, a civil engineer specializing in hydraulics, concluded that Machu Picchu's drainage system is as advanced as many modern urban projects. Wright called it 75% invisible engineering, hidden beneath the ground but absolutely essential to the site's survival. When the American explorer Hiram Bingham first brought Machu Picchu to the world's attention in 1911, the focus quickly turned to its stunning stone terraces, temples, and breathtaking mountain setting. Yet in the years that followed, another discovery associated with Bingham's expedition sparked curiosity and controversy: the elongated human skulls unearthed in and around the site. To mainstream archaeologists, these were examples of cranial deformation, a cultural practice known from many ancient societies. But to others, their unusual size and extreme shape hint at the survival of a lost prehistoric people, perhaps the true architects of Machu Picchu long before the Incas. During Bingham's Yale Peruvian expedition from 1912 to 1915, a series of excavations were carried out at Machu Picchu, its cemeteries, and surrounding caves. The team recovered dozens of human remains, including skulls that did not resemble typical Andean crania. Several of these were elongated with sloping foreheads, enlarged cranial vaults, and exaggerated cranial capacity. The skulls were carefully packed and shipped to Yale University along with artifacts, pottery, and other finds. Some were later displayed or described in reports, though often overshadowed by the architectural revelations of the site. But even Bingham himself noted how peculiar they appeared, hinting that Machu Picchu might have been inhabited by a very different population before the Incas ever arrived. The mainstream explanation for elongated skulls in the Andes is artificial cranial deformation. This practice, widespread among Andean societies, involved binding an infant's head with cloth, boards, or cradle boards to reshape the skull as it developed. The result was a tall, elongated cranium seen as a mark of nobility, beauty, or status. Indeed, such skulls have been documented across Peru, Bolivia, and Chile, especially among the Paracas culture of the southern coast. But here lies the mystery. Why would an entire society come to believe that an elongated skull was the visible sign of power, superiority, or divine connection? One powerful theory is that the practice of cranial deformation was an imitation of a real, earlier population that naturally bore elongated skulls. These individuals, whether a distinct race, a hybrid group, or a prehistoric elite, would have stood out physically from the general population. Their appearance and technological superiority would have marked them as different, perhaps even divine. Later cultures, including the Incas, may have copied this physical trait artificially, binding their infants' heads to resemble the ancestral elites they revered. Over time, cranial elongation itself became a status symbol, not because it had functional value, but because it visually linked Inca nobility to the legendary builders of the past. However, the skulls associated with Bingham's excavations raised deeper questions. Some skulls appeared far more extreme than typical examples of cultural cranial shaping. The slope of the forehead and cranial dome in certain specimens seemed beyond what binding alone could produce. Reports circulated that these skulls had larger than normal brain volumes, suggesting a physiological difference rather than mere reshaping. While many of these claims remain contested, they fueled speculation that the skulls belonged to a distinct population. In the decades since Bingham's discovery, the elongated skulls have been absorbed into a larger narrative of pre-Inca civilizations in Peru. Alternative historians and researchers argue that these skulls may represent the remnants of a different race or culture, one that predates the Inca by centuries or millennia. The argument goes that the same mysterious population responsible for the elongated skulls also built the most advanced megalithic stonework of the Andes, the finely fitted mortarless walls of Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, and Machu Picchu itself. Later Inca people, though skilled builders, could not replicate this megalithic perfection. Instead, they found, reused, and repaired the older ruins. The skulls may be the biological remnants of these prehistoric master masons. This could also be the reason the later Inca people tried to look like these technologically advanced ancestors, deforming their cranial shapes. Elongated skulls are not unique to Peru. They have been found in Egypt, linked to Amarna's royal family like Akhenaten and Nefertiti, in the Caucasus, in the island cultures of Melanesia, and among ancient peoples of Central Asia. This global pattern suggests to some a shared prehistoric tradition or even a widespread ancient civilization, with Peru's elongated skulls as one branch of a global phenomenon. Despite all the unexplained mysteries and advanced characteristics of Machu Picchu we discussed, the mainstream narrative of the site is very limited. Ask any archaeologist today about Machu Picchu, and the answer comes swiftly and confidently. It is a 15th century royal estate built by the Inca Emperor Pachacuti around 1450 CE. According to the Orthodox narrative, Machu Picchu was conceived as a luxury retreat and sacred ceremonial center perched high in the Andes. Its agricultural terraces fed the residents, its temples honored the sun and the mountain gods, and its breathtaking setting made it a spiritual nexus for the Inca elite. The Incas, the story goes, built the entire site within a few decades using their remarkable engineering skills, then abandoned it less than a century later when the Spanish conquest shattered their empire. Because the Spaniards never discovered Machu Picchu, the city remained largely intact until its rediscovery by Hiram Bingham in 1911, when it was revealed to the modern world. This is the official history repeated in classrooms, guidebooks, and museums, a short-lived jewel of Inca engineering, built and abandoned in the twilight years of their empire. While this story is tidy and convenient, a closer look at Machu Picchu raises troubling questions. Anyone who walks through Machu Picchu can see it. Some walls are made of massive granite blocks, carefully carved into irregular polygonal shapes that lock together with almost impossible precision. Other walls, often stacked directly above or beside these masterpieces, are made of small stones held together with mud mortar, visibly less refined and far more vulnerable to erosion. Why such a dramatic difference in craftsmanship on the same site? Mainstream archaeology insists this reflects social hierarchy, the best work for temples, the rougher work for storage rooms and common houses. Yet in many places, the cruder construction is not simply a different building, but a repair or extension grafted onto older, superior walls. This suggests not just stylistic choice, but two distinct phases of construction, possibly by two very different cultures. Studies show that some of Machu Picchu's walls were damaged by earthquakes and later repaired with smaller stones and mortar. This means the oldest megalithic sections predate the Incas' final construction phase. The Incas were patching, not originating, parts of the site. The Inca are said to have built Machu Picchu with only bronze chisels and hammerstones, no steel tools, no wheels, no draft animals. Yet they somehow quarried, transported, and perfectly fit blocks weighing 20 to 50 tons up steep mountain slopes. Mainstream archaeology accepts this without question, but engineering studies point out the enormous logistical challenges. The mortarless joints with complex multi-angled cuts are beyond what one would expect from simple hammerstone pounding. Excavations at Machu Picchu show Inca artifacts, burials, and ceramics from the 15th and 16th centuries, but no direct evidence of megalithic construction activity at that time. Where are the tools, unfinished blocks, or workspaces that should exist if the Incas truly built the Cyclopean walls from scratch? What we see instead is evidence of occupation, use, and repair, not necessarily original construction. An alternative perspective is emerging, one that sees Machu Picchu not as a purely Inca creation, but as a multi-layered site whose origins go back thousands of years earlier. The oldest megalithic walls, with their precision-fitted stones, represent the work of a prehistoric advanced civilization that flourished in the Andes long before the rise of the Inca. These builders possess sophisticated knowledge of stone cutting, transport, and seismic-resistant architecture that the Incas later could not replicate. The Incas arrived much later, perhaps finding Machu Picchu already partially in ruins. They recognized its sacred importance, incorporated it into their empire, and repaired or extended it using their own rougher methods, small stones and mortar. The resulting hybrid site is what we see today, a palimpsest of two vastly different cultural phases, one prehistoric and technically advanced, the other Inca and historically recent. If the megalithic sections are not Inca, how old are they? Mainstream archaeology ties everything to the 15th century because that is when Inca artifacts appear. But the stones themselves cannot be dated directly. Granite does not yield radiocarbon dates, and without organic material locked into the joints, the megaliths remain archaeologically silent. This silence leaves the door open for alternative chronologies. Some suggest the megalithic foundations could be 2,000 to 3,000 years old, linked to pre-Inca cultures like the Pucara or Tiwanaku traditions. Others push further back, proposing an age of 10,000 to 12,000 years, tying Machu Picchu's origins to the end of the last ice age, when global cataclysms may have destroyed an advanced prehistoric civilization remembered in myths of Atlantis or Viracocha. The fact that similar megalithic techniques appear at sites across the world strengthens the case for a much older advanced megalithic civilizations, predating the Incas by millennia. The Inca themselves seem to admit this in their legends. When Spanish chroniclers asked them who built the great stoneworks of Cusco and Sacsayhuaman, some Inca nobles replied that they were made by earlier peoples, sometimes described as giants, sometimes as the god Viracocha's followers. These were not casual statements. They reflect a deep cultural memory that the finest megaliths were inherited, not created by the Inca. Beneath the bustling streets of Cusco, Peru, hidden in plain sight under the colonial grandeur of the Santo Domingo convent, lies one of the most mysterious and controversial ancient structures in the Americas, Coricancha, the Golden Enclosure. Officially hailed as the most sacred temple of the Inca Empire, dedicated to the sun god Inti, Coricancha's massive stone foundations whisper of a far older story, one that mainstream archaeology struggles to explain. While the Spanish conquerors stripped its walls of gold and built their churches atop its ruins, they could not destroy the impeccable stonework at its core. Granite blocks, polished to a metallic sheen, are joined so tightly that not even a razor blade can pass between them. These aren't the crude remnants of a Bronze Age culture. They're the fingerprints of unknown builders possessing advanced technology. The precision and scale of Coricancha's construction have sparked bold theories that the Incas did not build it, but rather inherited it from a lost, advanced prehistoric civilization, one that possessed techniques and knowledge now vanished from history. With multi-angled polygonal masonry, vitrified stone joints, machine-like drill holes, and seismic-proof design that modern engineers still admire, Coricancha challenges our understanding of ancient history and the capabilities of our ancestors. Could there have been an earlier Andean civilization, one wiped out by some kind of cataclysm? A civilization that mastered the art of shaping and fitting stone with such elegance and durability, allowing it to last for thousands of years. What if the true builders of Coricancha left behind not just stones, but clues to an entire forgotten chapter of human history? At the southeastern edge of the colonial church of Santo Domingo in Cusco, Peru, lies one of the most compelling pieces of architectural evidence pointing to a lost mastery of stonework, the curved outer wall of Coricancha. Smooth, precisely carved and made from polished andesite blocks, this gently arcing facade defies not only the tools attributed to the Inca, but also the expectations of modern masonry. It is, in every sense, an architectural anomaly, one that has resisted damage through centuries of earthquakes, foreign conquest, and weathering. And yet, despite its resilience and elegance, its origin remains a subject of fierce debate. The wall curves outward in a perfectly uniform arc, hugging the modern street with an almost organic grace. It is made of large, tightly fitted andesite blocks, some over 1 meter tall and several tons in weight, each carved to match its neighbors so precisely that no mortar is needed. The curve itself is consistent throughout, forming what some have described as part of a perfect circle or ellipse. The stones are not stacked in flat, horizontal courses like brickwork. Instead, each row subtly adapts to the curve, and the individual stones are shaped to follow the radial lines of the arc, meaning each block had to be individually measured and carved to maintain the curvature. This is not a feature one typically finds in pre-industrial stonework, especially not in large-scale megalithic architecture. At first glance, the wall's precision might seem simply beautiful. On closer inspection, it becomes technologically provocative. To create such a wall today would require a detailed 3D plan, accurate surveying tools, and stone-shaping instruments capable of high-resolution measurements. That the stones also interlock along complex joints adds an additional layer of difficulty. This wasn't just an aesthetic decision, it was an engineering feat. The faces of the blocks are slightly convex. This convexity ensures that pressure is concentrated at the edges, enhancing the grip between stones. This subtle shaping was not an accident. It required an intimate understanding of stone mechanics. On the back side of the curved wall, you'll notice the typical knobs found on many megalithic stones around the world. But here, they are distinctly square, with precise right angles. These protrusions often appear in symmetrical patterns, especially on the mirrored sides of a window-like alcove. The arrangement suggests that something may have once been attached or fitted onto them, almost like interlocking pieces in a Lego-like system. The joints between blocks are so tight that not even a sheet of paper or a razor blade can fit between them. In several spots, these joints are not simple straight seams. They are multi-angled, zigzagging between adjacent blocks, increasing the contact surface and mechanical friction. Some of these joints appear fused or vitrified. There is a glassy sheen on certain seams, suggesting that intense heat may have been applied to partially melt the stone surface, a possibility that mainstream archaeology has yet to fully address. Alternative researchers argue that this vitrification may indicate the use of high-temperature stone fusion technology, perhaps using unknown tools or even advanced materials chemistry. Others suggest acoustic tools, or the manipulation of resonance frequencies to soften or levitate stone. While these ideas are speculative, they are rooted in a simple fact. The observable evidence cannot be easily reproduced with Bronze Age tools. This level of engineering is so far beyond the rest of Inca construction that it may represent a legacy of a far older and more technologically advanced culture, perhaps one that existed long before the Inca adopted Cusco as their capital. The Incas themselves claimed they did not build all the megalithic structures, referring to them as constructions left by the gods. If we go inside the temple, things get even stranger. One of the most striking anomalies is the series of trapezoidal doorways and niches, all aligned with astonishing accuracy. When you stand in front of one of these openings, you often see a perfect visual corridor through several successive chambers. These multi-room alignments are not random. They imply careful, intentional design, possibly connected to solar or ceremonial functions. Yet their technical execution, involving massive, individually shaped stones forming monolithic door frames and seamless transitions, suggests a construction technique far beyond simple stacking. Jay from the Voyager TV YouTube channel visited the site and measured each of the false windows with a digital protractor. He was stunned to discover that the bottom of all of them measured exactly 86 degrees. The top portion of these alcoves measures precisely 90 degrees, creating a subtle but intentional tapering. However, what makes this design particularly fascinating is its uniformity across great distances and its perfect integration into complex polygonal stonework. Roughly 70 kilometers away in the mountain stronghold of Ollantaytambo, located in the Sacred Valley, another temple structure exhibits these exact same measurements. Inside its ruins, nestled high on the mountainside, are alcoves and false windows that mirror the 86 degrees design of Coricancha, down to the smallest detail. This level of consistency across vast distances implies a shared blueprint or standardized system of measurement, something we associate more with industrial or modern architecture than with ancient empires lacking written technical records. Even the doorways within Coricancha adhere to this angular discipline. At the base of every portal, where the stones flare outward, the same 86 degrees angle is found, repeated again and again with uncanny accuracy. These are not rough approximations, but mathematically precise constructions, executed in hard andesite stone with no margin for error. Inside the temple, there are numerous excavated stone blocks on display, blocks featuring drilled holes and extremely precise grooves. The drilled holes themselves are perfectly circular and plunge deep into the extremely hard stone. The holes are so clean and symmetrical that they resemble modern drill holes. If we look closer, we can see the tiny groove marks, which suggests some kind of machine could be used to drill this stone. On certain blocks, you also see shallow channels or T-shaped cutouts on Chi surface dot. These T-grooves are intriguing because they are as strongly reminiscent of the masonry at far older Tiwanaku in Bolivia, where bronze clamps were used to hold stones together. Some of the blocks feature peculiar indentations that resemble channels, suggesting they may have once been used for piping connectors or conduits of some kind that were part of some sort of hydraulic system. If we examine the door of the Moon Temple, we can see remarkably advanced engineering. Intricate stone walls, fitted without mortar, feature perfectly angled drill holes, their purpose still debated. The walls inside the temple are truly astonishing. Just look at this precise fitting that is connected with astonishing accuracy. A remarkably interesting detail can be found on the walls of the inner temple of Coricancha, a feature so subtle it's often overlooked, yet so precise it may hold clues to a lost global tradition of megalithic engineering. Embedded between massive, multi-ton andesite blocks is a tiny, perfectly shaped stone, inserted with such meticulous care that it fits seamlessly into the larger structure. The precision is astonishing. No mortar, no filler, just exact geometry, snug enough to withstand centuries of seismic activity without shifting. In fact, this small block in the center is not accidental at all. This stone marks the point of stress relief. On its own, this might be dismissed as a clever local technique, but what makes it especially intriguing is that similar small stone insertions can only be found on the oldest, most mysterious, and most complex megalithic structures all around the world. For example, the wall at Ahu Vinapu on Easter Island, the Osirian of Abydos in Egypt, and even all the way to the Osaka Castle in Japan. Is this a simple coincidence, or an evidence for a now lost global prehistoric civilization? One of the most overlooked yet technically significant features of Coricancha's construction lies in its corner joints, specifically the use of L-shaped stone blocks that seamlessly wrap around the edges of the walls. These cornerstones are not simply two stones abutting at a 90 degrees angle. They are single blocks meticulously carved into an L shape, designed to tie adjacent walls together into a unified structure. Again, we see the exact same technique all across the globe in Egypt. Alternative theorists suggest that the shaping of these blocks may have involved methods we no longer understand, ranging from unknown abrasion techniques, chemical stone softening, or even stone casting using lost geopolymers. Whatever the method, the result speaks of a knowledge system far more advanced than what conventional history attributes to the Inca. Long before Spanish boots echoed through the streets of Cusco, before crosses replaced solar discs and gold was melted into ingots for shipment to Spain, Coricancha stood as one of the most resplendent sacred sites in the ancient world, a temple of light, gold, and celestial alignment. Historical chronicles, including those of early Spanish chroniclers like Garcilaso de la Vega and Pedro Chiesa de León, paint a picture of unparalleled magnificence. The temple's name, Coricancha, is derived from the Quechua words curi, gold, and cancha, enclosure or sacred space, and it lived up to that name in every sense. Its outer walls, now bare and gray, were once completely covered in plates of solid gold, reflecting the sun's rays so brilliantly that from a distance, the temple appeared to be ablaze with divine light. Inside, the radiance only intensified. The inner sanctum of Coricancha was said to contain a massive golden disk, symbolizing Inti, the Inca sun god. Mounted high on the eastern wall, this disk was aligned so that during the June solstice, the first rays of the rising sun would shine directly upon it, bathing the room in golden light and triggering ceremonial observances that marked the Inca New Year. Some accounts suggest that this disk also acted as a solar mirror, reflecting sunlight deeper into the temple's corridors, possibly into secret or symbolic chambers that responded to this precise astronomical moment. But this brilliant beacon of solar worship did not survive the conquest. When the Spanish arrived in the 1530s, they were staggered by the wealth of Coricancha and promptly stripped it bare. Gold and silver were looted en masse, melted down into bullion to fill the coffers of the Spanish crown. The Golden Garden was uprooted. The great sun disk, rumored to be carried away or hidden by priests, was never seen again. Over time, the temple itself was buried under the convent of Santo Domingo, a Christian monument symbolically constructed atop the Inca holy site in a deliberate act of religious domination. What remains today are only the bones, the earthquake-proof stone walls, the tightly fitted blocks of the inner chambers, and the few scattered remnants of a once glorious structure. Yet, even in this skeletal form, Coricancha still radiates mystery. All these observations feed into a tantalizing theory that the Andes were once home to a lost civilization with engineering capabilities far beyond what we traditionally credit to indigenous cultures of the 1st or 2nd millennium CE. This hypothetical civilization would have predated the Inca, perhaps by thousands of years, and could have been responsible for laying the foundations, literally, of sites like Coricancha, Sacsayhuaman, and Ollantaytambo. Some proponents link this idea to global lost civilization theories, suggesting that after a cataclysm, like the end of the last ice age approximately 12,000 years ago, remnants of an advanced culture might have shared their building knowledge with survivors in different parts of the world. It's an intriguing attempt to explain why megalithic, precise masonry appears in places as disparate as Peru, Egypt, and Easter Island. For the Andes specifically, one could imagine an ancient people, call them the Andean Atlanteans for lack of a better term, who had developed techniques to shape and move stone with ease. They might have had metal tools superior to what we've found, perhaps lost or melted down over time, or even machines to abrade or lift heavy rocks. Some radical ideas even involve sound technology, acoustic levitation of stones, or unknown energy sources to melt and reform rock. While these notions drift into speculative territory, they're inspired by real enigmas in the stones. Amid the ruin and loss that followed the Spanish conquest of Coricancha, almost every trace of the Inca Empire's golden splendor was stripped away, melted, stolen, or destroyed. But one extraordinary artifact somehow survived the plunder, a remnant of sacred knowledge cast in gold, known as the Golden Altar Star Map. This relic, though rarely discussed in mainstream sources, is considered by some researchers to be one of the most important surviving Inca artifacts, not merely for its material value, but for what it records, a celestial map of the heavens as seen by the ancient Andean sky watchers. It is, to date, the only known star map in gold from the ancient world in South America, and perhaps the most direct visual testimony of the Incas' astronomical knowledge and spiritual cosmology. The star map, sometimes referred to as the altar of the cosmos, is said to have once adorned a sacred wall or pedestal within Coricancha, likely beneath or adjacent to the great golden disk of Inti, the sun god. Crafted from thin sheets of gold and etched with symbolic carvings, the map depicts a sky filled with constellations known to the Inca, along with their mythological associations, stars and celestial groupings tied to deities, animals, and sacred narratives passed down orally through generations. Alongside the star map, another surviving fragment is referred to as the Golden Wall, a gilded sheet that may once have covered an entire temple wall or ceremonial backdrop. Today, only portions remain, but researchers speculate that this piece was part of a larger golden overlay system used throughout Coricancha. While the Inca undoubtedly held the temple in the highest esteem, adorning it with gold, aligning it with the sun, and integrating it into their ceremonial life, the evidence suggests they were not its original builders. Instead, they were the inheritors of a structure so advanced in its engineering and design that even they may have viewed it as the work of gods or forgotten ancestors. The precision of the masonry, the use of L-shaped cornerstones, the presence of vitrified joints, polygonal stone blocks with seamless integration, mysterious niches, tool marks, and a design that integrates astronomical knowledge all point to a level of architectural sophistication that predates known Inca methods. It is plausible and increasingly compelling to consider that Coricancha was built by an earlier, prehistoric civilization, one whose name and memory have been lost to history, yet whose knowledge was so refined that even thousands of years later, the structure remained standing, largely unaltered in form. The Inca, recognizing its sacredness and strategic importance, adapted it to their cosmology and culture, just as later the Spanish would build their convent upon it in an effort to overwrite both civilizations. This perspective reframes Coricancha not as a standalone monument, but as part of a continuum of ancient inheritance, a relic of a time when human beings may have possessed a different kind of knowledge, one based not only on brute labor, but on advanced geometry, astronomical precision, and possibly even unknown technologies. In the heart of the Andes, shrouded in the mists of time, lies a mystery that has puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. Welcome to Sacsayhuaman, an ancient fortress perched above the former Inca capital of Cusco, a marvel of engineering that defies conventional understanding. This enigmatic structure, with its colossal stones perfectly interlocked without the use of mortar, is so advanced that even conventional archaeologists can't help but question if it was even possible for humans of the era to build with such perfection. These stones are so massive that they dwarf modern machinery, intricately carved and fitted with such precision that not even a blade of grass can pass through their joints. How were these stones transported, shaped, and placed by a civilization that, according to mainstream history, lacked the wheel, iron tools, or even a written language? As we delve into the heart of Sacsayhuaman, we embark on a journey back in time, exploring the ingenuity of a culture that flourished in the rugged landscapes of South America. Join us as we unravel the secrets of this ancient wonder, piecing together the clues left behind by the Inca and their predecessors. Explore the evidence that will enable us to gain insight into whether or not this ancient site was the product of the indigenous Inca or a much earlier, advanced culture that some conventional archaeologists still try to dismiss. This colossal structure, known for its massive, intricately carved stones, stands as a colossal reminder of a bygone era's architectural prowess and has given rise to numerous debates and theories regarding its origins and purpose. Sacsayhuaman is a Quechua name that translates to satisfied falcon. This name is believed to symbolize the falcon's role in guarding the capital of the Inca Empire. The site's strategic location, overlooking Cusco, suggests its importance as a military complex. However, its exact purpose remains a subject of scholarly debate, with theories ranging from a ceremonial center to an astronomical observatory. The most intriguing aspect of Sacsayhuaman is its construction, a feat that seems to defy the technological capabilities of the Inca civilization. The fortress is characterized by its large, irregularly shaped boulders, some weighing as much as 200 tons, fitted together with incredible precision. The absence of mortar in these joints, which are so tight that not even a blade of paper can slide through, has baffled experts for years. This precision, coupled with the sheer size of the stones, raises questions about the methods and tools used in its construction. While it is widely accepted that Sacsayhuaman was built by the Incas, a growing body of evidence suggests that its origins may be even more ancient. Some researchers propose that the site was constructed by a lost civilization that predated the Inca Empire. This theory is fueled by the architectural complexity and sophistication of the site, which seem to surpass the known technological capabilities of the Incas. The Incas, undoubtedly skilled builders, are known for their advanced understanding of stone masonry and architecture. However, the technology required to quarry, transport, and precisely carve and fit such enormous stones seems to be far beyond their known capabilities. This discrepancy has led to various alternative theories, including the involvement of extraterrestrial influences or the existence of a yet-to-be-discovered advanced ancient civilization. Supporting the theory of a pre-Inca civilization are the legends and oral histories passed down through generations. Many local legends speak of a time before the Incas, where a more advanced civilization existed, possessing knowledge and technologies that were lost over time. These stories, while often dismissed as myths, provide an intriguing context that aligns with the mysteries surrounding Sacsayhuaman's construction. The architectural features of Sacsayhuaman are not only impressive in terms of their scale and precision, but also in their design. The complex includes a series of zigzagging walls, believed to represent the teeth of a puma, a sacred animal in Inca mythology. This alignment with symbolic and cosmological elements points to a deep understanding of both engineering and astronomy. The mystery of Sacsayhuaman extends beyond its walls to the numerous tunnels and chambers said to lie beneath. These subterranean passages, some of which are yet to be fully explored, add another layer of intrigue to the site. They are rumored to connect Sacsayhuaman to other Inca sites and even to Cusco itself, although much of this remains speculative. The Inca Empire, known as Tawantinsuyu, was the largest empire in pre-Columbian America. Its historical prominence from the 15th to the early 16th century is marked by remarkable achievements in architecture, agriculture, and governance. The Incas were master stonemasons, evident in their iconic structures like Machu Picchu and, of course, Sacsayhuaman. However, the history of Sacsayhuaman possibly predates the Inca civilization, pointing to a deeper, more enigmatic past. Historical accounts of Sacsayhuaman primarily come from Spanish conquistadors and chroniclers. According to these sources, the construction of Sacsayhuaman was ordered by the Inca ruler Pachacuti and continued by subsequent rulers. The Spanish were astounded by its grandeur, with Pedro Sancho, a secretary to the conquistador Francisco Pizarro, noting its massive stones and the precision of their fitting. However, these accounts also mention the existence of structures and foundations that predated the Incas, suggesting that the site had been significant long before Inca rule. The theory of a pre-Inca civilization contributing to Sacsayhuaman's construction is supported by various strands of evidence. The first is the architectural style. The megalithic stones of Sacsayhuaman differ significantly from typical Inca architecture, which usually features smaller, more regularly shaped blocks. This discrepancy suggests that the site may have been built in phases, with a more ancient, sophisticated phase laying the foundation. Archaeological findings in the region also support the existence of earlier cultures. The discovery of the Quilque culture, which inhabited the Cusco region from 900 to 1200 AD, before the rise of the Inca, indicates that advanced societies were present in the area. Artifacts and structures attributed to the Quilque have been found near Sacsayhuaman, hinting at their possible involvement in its early construction stages. The construction techniques used in Sacsayhuaman are another point of intrigue. The precision of the stonework, with some stones having up to 12 angles perfectly fitting together, is not seen in other Inca constructions. This level of sophistication suggests that the builders had a profound understanding of stone masonry, engineering, and perhaps even geology. The question arises, did the Incas inherit these techniques from a more advanced predecessor? Radiocarbon dating and other scientific methods have been employed to determine the age of Sacsayhuaman. While these methods have confirmed the presence of the Inca, they have also indicated that parts of the structure could be much older. However, the exact dates and the implications of these findings are still subjects of ongoing research and debate. The astronomical aspect of Sacsayhuaman is another fascinating feature. The Incas were skilled astronomers, and many of their structures align with celestial events. Sacsayhuaman is no exception, with certain aspects of its design aligning with solstices and equinoxes. The most notable of these is the Inti Raymi, or the Festival of the Sun, which is celebrated during the winter solstice. During this time, the sun's rays align perfectly with specific angles and corners of the fortress's walls. This alignment is not just symbolic, but also served as a practical means to mark the changing of seasons, which was crucial for agricultural planning and religious ceremonies. The site's layout, with its expansive open spaces and strategically placed structures, appears to have been designed to offer optimal vantage points for observing celestial events. The large, flat areas may have functioned as observatories, where priests and astronomers could monitor the heavens and interpret the movements of celestial bodies. These observations likely played a vital role in the Incas' calendar, dictating planting and harvesting times, and were integral to their cosmology and religious practices. Moreover, the astronomical alignments at Sacsayhuaman demonstrate a deep connection between the Incas' spiritual beliefs and their empirical observations of the cosmos. The heavens were not just a source of wonder, but a critical aspect of their understanding of the world. The sun, moon, and stars were central figures in Inca mythology and religion, and their movements across the sky were seen as divine manifestations. One of the primary challenges in understanding Sacsayhuaman's construction lies in the sheer size and weight of the stones used. The largest of these boulders weigh over 200 tons, raising significant questions about the methods used for quarrying, transporting, and lifting them into place. The Incas, known for their sophisticated engineering techniques, did not have access to the wheel, nor did they use draft animals capable of moving such massive stones. This logistical conundrum has led some researchers to speculate about the use of advanced yet unknown technologies or methods that have been lost to history. The true extent of their skill is revealed not just in the sheer size of the stones, but in the intricate details and peculiarities that mark each block. These features, ranging from curving walls to unusual scoop marks, bulging faces, and mysterious nubs, provide a fascinating glimpse into the ancient stoneworking techniques and raise intriguing questions about the tools and methods used in their construction. One of the most striking aspects of Sacsayhuaman's architecture is the way some stones curve around corners. This feature is not just a testament to the aesthetic sensibilities of the builders, but also an indication of their advanced understanding of structural integrity. The curving stones add strength to the walls, allowing them to withstand the seismic activity that is common in the Andean region. The ability to shape these massive stones so that they conform perfectly to such complex angles and curves suggests a level of precision and expertise that is nothing short of remarkable. The unusual scoop marks found on many of the stones at Sacsayhuaman are another feature that has puzzled researchers and visitors alike. These marks indicate a specific tool or technique used in the quarrying process, but what exactly this tool was or how it was used remains a mystery. The scoop marks are consistent and precise, suggesting that the builders had not only advanced tools, but also a standardized method of using them. This level of uniformity and precision in tool use is a clear indicator of the sophisticated craftsmanship and technological capabilities of the society that built Sacsayhuaman. Another intriguing aspect of the stonework at Sacsayhuaman is the bulging faces of some of the blocks. Unlike the flat, smooth surfaces one might expect, these stones have protruding sections that add a three-dimensional quality to the walls. This feature could have been purely decorative, or it might have served a practical purpose, such as enhancing the stability of the structure or facilitating the interlocking of the stones. The bulging faces of the stones add to the complexity of the construction process, as they would have required additional shaping and fitting, further showcasing the builder's skill. Perhaps one of the most mysterious features of Sacsayhuaman stonework is the presence of small, regular protrusions or nubs on some of the stones. These nubs are not unique to Sacsayhuaman and can be found at other megalithic sites around the world, suggesting a shared technique or purpose among ancient stone builders. The function of these nubs is still debated, with theories ranging from them being used for lifting or positioning the stones during construction to serving some sort of astronomical or ceremonial purpose. The fact that these nubs appear in different cultures and locations adds an intriguing dimension to the mystery, hinting at a possible exchange of knowledge or a common architectural heritage among ancient civilizations. The craftsmanship of Sacsayhuaman is not just evident in the large-scale layout and construction of the fortress, but also in these small, intricate details. Each feature, whether it is a curve, a scoop mark, a bulging face, or a mysterious nub, tells a story of a highly skilled society with a deep understanding of stone masonry and architecture. These features challenge our understanding of ancient technologies and push us to reconsider the capabilities of pre-Columbian civilizations. Adding to the mystery are the legends and myths that surround Sacsayhuaman. Local oral traditions and legends speak of the fortress being constructed by a race of giants or by the intervention of gods. These stories, while often viewed as mythical, resonate with the sense of awe that the site inspires and reflect the deep cultural and spiritual significance it holds for the local population. From an archaeological and scientific perspective, there have been numerous attempts to explain the construction techniques used at Sacsayhuaman. Some theories suggest that the builders used a combination of manpower, ropes, louvers, and wooden rollers to move and lift the stones. However, these theories are often inconsistent with the size and precision of the site. Others propose that the stones were softened, perhaps by some sort of advanced technology that softened or even melted the stone, allowing them to be molded and fitted with precision. Nevertheless, none of these theories have been conclusively proven, and the exact methods used remain a subject of debate and research. Everything at Sacsayhuaman screams architectural perfection, but just how could this have been completed without the use of iron and steel? How were the enormous blocks moved? Is it possible that what we're looking at is evidence that an advanced civilization once thrived in this area of Peru? The exploration of Sacsayhuaman's origins inevitably leads to the investigation of the evidence pointing towards a pre-Inca civilization. This line of inquiry not only challenges our understanding of the timeline of Andean cultures, but also opens up a fascinating window into the ancient history of South America. The historical records and oral traditions surrounding Sacsayhuaman offer a rich information that, when woven together with physical evidence, presents a fascinating narrative about its origins. Inca legends and myths, many of which were meticulously recorded by Spanish chroniclers during the colonial period, frequently allude to a time preceding their civilization, marked by extraordinary architectural achievements. These stories, once relegated to the realm of mere folklore, are now increasingly acknowledged as potential reservoirs of historical truth, offering glimpses into a past that might have been influenced by a more advanced, yet now forgotten, civilization. Central to these legends is the figure of Viracocha, a deity revered as the creator of all things. According to Inca lore, Viracocha was responsible for the creation of the sun, the moon, the stars, and all living beings. Intriguingly, Viracocha was not only a god of creation, but also a teacher of skills and crafts. The Inca believed that Viracocha and his companions, often referred to as the Viracochas, were the ones who imparted crucial knowledge to the people, including advanced architectural techniques. This narrative finds a compelling connection with Sacsayhuaman. The tale suggests that Sacsayhuaman was constructed not by the Inca themselves, but by these supernatural Viracochas. This legend aligns with the theory that the site predates the Inca civilization and was built by a more ancient culture possessing profound knowledge and skills. The Inca, upon arriving in the region, are said to have encountered remnants of this once great civilization, including some of its last inhabitants. These people, believed to be the descendants of the Viracochas, reportedly shared their knowledge with the Inca, teaching them advanced construction techniques. One of the most intriguing aspects of this legend is the mention of a specific acid derived from a plant, which was used to mold rocks into desired shapes. This detail is particularly fascinating as it suggests a level of technological sophistication that goes beyond the conventional understanding of pre-Columbian stone masonry. The idea that the ancient builders had the means to soften or shape stone using a plant-based solution opens up a plethora of questions about their understanding of chemistry and geology. While no concrete evidence of this acid has been found to date, the legend persists, fueling speculation and research into ancient Andean technologies. The notion that the Inca learned their building techniques from a more ancient civilization is not without precedent in historical narratives. Many cultures have legends of receiving knowledge from godlike beings or advanced ancestors. These stories often explain the sudden leaps in technological or cultural development. In the case of Sacsayhuaman, the legend of the Viracochas could be interpreted as a representation of the transmission of skills and knowledge from an older, advanced culture to the Inca. Furthermore, the reverence with which the Inca regarded Sacsayhuaman and other ancient sites supports the idea that they viewed these structures as part of a sacred and venerable heritage. The meticulousness with which they maintained and integrated these sites into their own culture and cosmology suggests a deep respect for the achievements of their predecessors. Due to the many anomalies of Sacsayhuaman and its unique walls, researchers and archaeologists have tried to explain the construction techniques logically. This has led researchers to suggest that the stones are a type of geopolymer, or in simplistic terms, a form of early cement that was poured into molds. A Russian group of geophysicists carried out some work at the site in 2012. The group from Geo and Asociados SRL worked closely with Peru's Ministry of Culture to identify a few problems occurring at the site. The Russian team eventually took various samples from the rocks at Sacsayhuaman. While their investigation was centered on better understanding the level of erosion on the blocks, they stumbled upon a few anomalies that further alluded to the idea of some kind of geopolymer being used at the site. When they published their results, they revealed that the limestone used at Sacsayhuaman had an unusual composition, slightly different from that found in the nearby quarry. While the rock at the quarry was precisely what they'd expect to see, the stone from the megalithic walls at Sacsayhuaman had anomalies, which led them to speculate further about the possibility of a geopolymer being used. The scientists working on the project hypothesized that limestone blocks were sourced from the quarry. Yet, they may have been crushed into powder through the use of extensive bonfires, which would have weakened the stone before being made into a limestone paste from which blocks were molded. But if we are to believe this theory, then it should also be noted that the manufacturing of such blocks would have been on an industrial scale due to the sheer volume of the walls and structures at the site. The amount of mixture needed is almost incomprehensible to those who have worked on the theory. Even with the hydraulic paste or geopolymer theory, a lot of it still has yet to make sense. If working with cement, why make such large blocks? Were the blocks molded and then moved, or were they built upon one another? And finally, if such blocks were the geopolymer or made from a cement-like paste, how did they become so strong that it has withstood enormous earthquakes over the last 1,000 years? Yet Spanish churches built long after have crumbled into dust on several occasions. It appears there is more than meets the eye when it comes to Sacsayhuaman, and in fact, there's still evidence to suggest that the rocks themselves were quarried and not shaped. The unique properties of the limestone blocks that constitute the massive walls of Sacsayhuaman are a subject of great interest and scientific study. These properties are not commonly found in limestone and suggest a fascinating geological history linked to the site's proximity to volcanic activity. The nearby Rodadero Formation, an ancient geological site, provides critical clues to this mystery. The Rodadero Formation is known for its historical volcanic activity, characterized by a significant flow of lava from its center. This geological phenomenon is crucial in understanding the unique characteristics of the limestone used in Sacsayhuaman. Limestone, a sedimentary rock, typically forms in marine environments and is primarily composed of calcium carbonate. However, under certain conditions, such as exposure to intense heat, limestone can undergo a process known as recrystallization. The limestone blocks in the walls of Sacsayhuaman exhibit these distinctive properties, suggesting that they might have undergone such a natural recrystallization process. This geological transformation would not only explain the durability and longevity of these stones, but also their ability to withstand the seismic activity that is common in the Andean region. The precise fitting of the stones, a hallmark of Sacsayhuaman's construction, might have been facilitated by the altered texture and consistency of the recrystallized limestone. But what kind of technology did the ancients possess to be able to produce such intense heat equivalent to volcanic activity? How did they recrystallize the limestone, endowing it with the strength and durability that have allowed this magnificent structure to stand the test of time? While the theories of how such a unique site could have been built in such a distant past continue to pile up, it appears many have begun to accept the idea that Sacsayhuaman may have been built by an ancient forgotten civilization. The idea of an advanced civilization once thriving in the area is backed up by similar sites in the region that also display equally impressive megalithic masonry. What happened to this advanced culture may never be solved, yet their achievements may stand for thousands of years to come. What do you think about Sacsayhuaman? Could the Inca have built it? Or did they inherit it from a much older civilization that vanished at some distant point in the past? And could the Andean legends of the Viracocha really lead us to the origins of the site? High in the Andes Mountains, over 12,000 feet above sea level, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, lay the ancient pre-Inca ruins of Puma Punku, Door of the Puma. These ruins, some 45 miles west of the modern city of La Paz, Bolivia, stand as one of Earth's greatest mysteries. By the time it was discovered by the Incas, Puma Punku was already abandoned. There exists no record beyond that of who might have built it or when. Traditionally, archaeologists dated Puma Punku to somewhere around 500 CE. But in the 1920s, an Austrian archaeologist and explorer named Arthur Poznański, who had spent decades at the site, proposed something quite different. He noted that on the first day of spring, the sun rose directly above the center of the ruins, through a stone archway. It seemed, Poznański surmised as he examined the layout, that as the sunrise moved along the horizon as the days of the year passed, it would rise over the two cornerstones on either side of the archway on the summer and winter solstices. Yet when those days came, it did not. This puzzled and disappointed Poznański, until, after further research, he realized that the sun would have raised exactly over those spots approximately 17,000 years ago. Thus, Posnanski asserted that Puma Punku was built by some sort of prehistoric civilization lost to the history books, that the site was more than 10 times as old as archaeology had previously hypothesized. And yet, who built Puma Punku, and whether they existed 1,500 years ago or more than 15,000, is not even the greatest mystery of the site. It is not so much about who built it, but how they did so. The structures of Puma Punku are built of huge stones, granite, and diorite, a series of blocks which fit together like a puzzle without mortar holding them in place, positioned so perfectly that a razor blade can't fit between. Even more incredibly, the structures have smooth, flawless right angles, made of perfectly straight stones with circular holes drilled in them at exactly the same size and depth. Modern experts have asserted that even with modern technology, Puma Punku would be near impossible to replicate. So how could it possibly have been constructed by an ancient civilization? For answers, first travel across the world to Egypt and the famous unfinished obelisk at Aswan. To this day, the enormous obelisk lays encased in granite bedrock, a monstrosity some 42 meters long and well over 1,000 tons, more than twice the size of the largest completed Egyptian obelisk. But it was not just the size that confused modern archaeologists. More perplexing, the obelisk was carved out of pink granite, an extremely hard rock, and one much harder than the tools used by ancient Egyptians. Simply, if Egyptians had used their bronze and dolerite tools on pink granite, the tools would have worn out faster than the rock. Further, the obelisk was lying in a deep trench, which would not have left room for a hard blow. If an Egyptian hammer already wasn't strong enough to carve the granite, it would be even less so without room to wind up and strike firmly. With this in mind, archaeologists examining the obelisk noticed what appeared to be strange tool marks on the side, described as scoops, as if done with a belt sander on wood. This was not a pattern made by hammering tools, nor, for that matter, any type of tool the ancient Egyptians possessed. Curiously, similar scoops were found in megaliths in Peru and elsewhere. Manufacturing expert Chris Dunn, who examined the site, reached a suggestive conclusion. The unfinished obelisk offers compelling indirect evidence regarding the level of technology its creators had reached, not so much by indicating clearly what methods were used, but by the overpowering indications of what methods could not have been used. And yet, the obelisk at Aswan is not the only Egyptian evidence of such a thing. Consider the massive granite boxes found at the Serapeum at Saqqara, a site near Memphis in Lower Egypt. These boxes were finished to unbelievably high accuracy, with sharper dimensions than should have been possible at the time, particularly when using granite. In modern times, masons use diamond-tipped hydraulic pressure machines loaded with ample cooling fluid to cut granite, a far cry from the primitive tools of ancient Egypt. Or what about the many examples of Egyptian stonecraft pottery carved out of granite and other hard rock with unimaginable precision? Experts assert that even with modern technology, this stonecraft pottery cannot be replicated. If not so-called modern technology, just what sort of technology did the ancient Egyptians possess? Chris Dunn offers a dramatic explanation. I believe that these artifacts that I have measured in Egypt are the smoking gun that proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that a higher civilization than what we have been taught existed in ancient Egypt. The evidence is cut into the stone. The question then becomes, if this is, in fact, evidence of a smoking gun, what does this evidence show? What is the smoking gun? That is to say, how did they do it? In the 1980s, a group of researchers from St. Cloud University in Minnesota, led by the enigmatic archaeologist Ivan Watkins, endeavored to study the stonework of the incredible Inca ruins of Machu Picchu in Peru at an up-close, microscopic level. Hard rock, such as that which makes up Machu Picchu's mighty structures, contains a mix of numerous minerals with varying degrees of hardness, which can be seen when examined under a microscope. When force is applied to the rock, such as by hammering or grinding or sanding, the weaker minerals crack and break while the harder ones stay together. By studying the stonework of Machu Picchu microscopically, Watkins and his team hoped to find out more about how the rock was cut, and thus how the structures were made. And yet, upon examination, Watkins and his team were stunned. The surface of the rock was not an uneven mishmash of broken and held together minerals, but rather a smooth, slick surface, almost as though the rock had been exposed to extreme heat, melting quartz fragments into a sort of glaze which filled in the stone's microscopic irregularities. The research was taken up by a different team, led by a geologist from the United States Bureau of Mines named David Lindroth, who sought to discover how the stone blocks of Machu Picchu had been cut so as to give the rock a glazed effect. After some effort, Lindroth and his team found that by focusing a laser with 100 watts of power at a 2-millimeter area and moving it back and forth, a stone could be cut by the beam. This was a process they called thermal disaggregation. Regardless of what it was called, though, it seemed that Lindroth and his team were suggesting that the Incas could have cut the stones used to create Machu Picchu with lasers. And speaking of ancient laser cutting technology, we must mention the mysterious Al-Nasla rock found in the Taima Oasis in Saudi Arabia. This massive block is split through the center by a very precise and clean cut, almost as if the rock was sliced with some kind of laser technology. Apparently, the Incas were not the only ones who possessed this kind of technology. It is interesting to note that, like the Egyptians and the ancient peoples of Lake Titicaca, the Incas worshipped a sun god. They had a yearly festival called the Festival of the Sun, during which a priest would use a bracelet with a concave gold charm to reflect the sun and light a pile of cotton on fire. Some have suggested that this is a clue. Others have gone further, like Ivan Watkins, who, in a 1986 article published in the LA Times, proclaimed the Incas used solar power, not manpower, to cut the huge stones they used to build their massive cities. According to Watkins, the Incas would use large parabolic dish-shaped reflectors made of gold, the size of 2 men across, to focus the sun's energy into a beam of light that could cut rock. There's no doubt in my mind that they knew how to do it, Watkins asserted. The existence of large gold discs at Inca temples is confirmed by the records of Spanish conquistadors, who historians suggest likely cut up the gold discs for poker chips before melting them down and sending them back to Spain. If these discs were used as Watkins suggests, one might laugh at the stereotypical actions of conquerors, taking the loot but missing the point. But what then is the point? Is it possible that the Incas and other ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and those who built Puma Punku had knowledge of how to harness the power of the sun? All three of these civilizations accomplished seemingly impossible feats of stonework. All three lived in places with year-long sun and worshipped a sun god. Could all three have possessed a knowledge of some sort of ancient solar laser? Perhaps. Or perhaps there is even more to it than that. A number of years ago, a strange story started making its way around the fringes of the archaeological community, on early internet message boards and in hushed tones in the back rooms of iconoclast academia. Apparently, a young American archaeologist in Egypt had taken it upon herself to do some, to put it mildly, snooping around. This was probably not an unusual fantasy for archaeologists regularly stymied by the notoriously secretive Egyptian government. In this case, the young American picked the lock of a nondescript Egyptian storeroom at the end of some dusty hallway and opened the door to a small room stacked to the brim with hundreds of tuning forks, some small, 8 or 9 inches in size, some as big as 8 or 9 feet, each like the letter U at the end of a long handle, resembling a pitchfork. Most curiously, each fork had a taut wire stretched between the prongs of the U. When the wire was plucked, the fork would vibrate. Note that, officially, the tuning fork was not invented until 1711 by a British musician named John Shore. So what were these tuning forks doing at an Egyptian archaeological site? And if these forks had been found there, would this not be something to share with the world, at least in as much as it seems to predate the recorded invention of the tuning fork? More importantly, what could these forks, and not 1 or 2 but hundreds, have been used for? Some small, as if made for finer details, others large, as if made for heavy work. Consider that ancient Egyptian art often portrayed deities with a rod in their hand, specifically a staff with a forked base in the shape of a U and a pronged head, usually made out to look like some sort of animal. This is not any staff, but what is known as the Waz scepter. In ancient Egyptian beliefs, it represented power. But what sort of power? Maybe this is more literal than it seems. Remember the solar laser spoken about by Watkins, accomplished by focusing the electromagnetic waves of the sun? Some have asked, why do the waves have to be electromagnetic? Why not waves of sound? This idea is not as far-fetched as it may initially seem. In fact, as far back as 2000, NASA had begun work on what they called an ultrasonic sonic driller core, more simply, a device which uses sound waves to hammer through materials. This is a device NASA envisions as being used to explore beneath the surface of other planets in the future. More recently, scientists at the University of Michigan discovered a way to concentrate sound waves at a frequency 10,000 times higher than humans can hear into a beam, which then acts as an invisible knife. In other words, scientists at the University of Michigan have created an invisible laser beam of sound. This so-called sonic drilling relates directly to the civilizations of ancient Egypt and elsewhere. By sending sound vibrations through the handle of a tuning fork, say, by plucking a taut wire strung between the prongs of the U, the bottom end of the fork can be turned into a high-frequency jackhammer, one which, even if it was made out of copper, would be able to cut granite with precision. Perhaps this is how the Egyptians cut rock that was too hard for their tools. And if the same characteristics found in Egyptian stonework were found elsewhere in the world, at places like Machu Picchu and Puma Punku, perhaps each of these ancient civilizations possessed since-forgotten secrets of the power of sound. Or perhaps the secrets go even deeper. Perhaps the power of sound was something the ancients knew all too well, better, in fact, than we know in modern times. In 1533, Spanish conquistadors arrived at the borders of the Inca Empire. They penetrated quickly inward, cutting a path with steel, looting and plundering as they did. In one Inca town, a priest named Amaru Ramu waited for the conquerors to arrive, cradling close to him his community's prized possession, a small golden disc they called the Key of the Gods of the Seven Rays. As the Spanish got closer, Amaru Ramu decided to flee into the mountains around Lake Titicaca, taking the precious disc with him, lest the Spanish get their hands on it. There, hidden amongst the rocky peaks, he came across a group of holy men guarding what appeared to be a large doorway carved into a mountain. The men began to tell Amaru Ramu the story of this doorway, proclaiming that it was a portal they called the Gate of the Gods, which, when opened, led to the world where Inca deities resided. Great heroes of the past, they explained, had traveled through the door when their time on Earth was complete. There was even a prophecy that one day the gate would open, much wider than it had before, and the gods would return to Earth. Intrigued, Amaru Ramu began to examine the doorway more closely. In the middle of this door was a small circular depression, about the exact size, he realized, of the golden disc he had brought with him. Curious, he took out the disc and placed it in the depression. It fit perfectly. Suddenly, a blue light began emanating from the doorway, and the mythical portal began to open as Amaru Ramu and the holy men alike stared in awe. Perhaps sensing what was to befall his Inca brethren at the hands of the Spanish, Amaru stepped through the door, never to be seen again. Centuries later, this story had mostly been forgotten, reclined comfortably into the genre of myth. And perhaps there it would have stayed, if not for a man named José Luis Delgado, who discovered something incredible. In 1996, Delgado began to have a strange and extremely vivid recurring dream. In it, he stood before a stone doorway which emanated a mysterious blue light. Perhaps the dream was little more than a result of stress. Delgado had just started a new job as a tour guide in the mountains of modern Peru, and he did not yet know the area well enough to feel comfortable leading the many tourists who pass through each year. To rectify this, he began to explore the area on foot, better acclimating himself with the vast surroundings. One day, while doing just this, Delgado came across something which stunned him. There, deep in the mountains, was what appeared to be a large stone door, 25 feet tall and 25 feet wide, carved into the side of a mountain, with a smaller recessed door at its base, exactly the door Delgado had seen in his dream. As he described, "When I saw the structure for the first time, I almost passed out. I have dreamed of such a construction repeatedly over the years. I have commented to my family many times about these dreams, and so when I finally gazed upon the doorway, it was like a revelation from God. How do you make order of such a strange occurrence?" His discovery brought a rush of researchers and interested tourists to the area. This resulted in numerous reports of abnormal occurrences. Some heard strange music emanating from behind the stone. Others claimed that when they put their hands on the door, they could feel energy pulsating from the inside. Some even began having visions of columns of fire and supernatural happenings. In short order, the Peruvian government designated the area a historic site, stopping any further research from taking place and leaving the mystery unsolved. What shocked many researchers was a discovery made in Turkey of a structure almost identical to the Gate of the Gods in Peru. How can we find the same structure literally on the other side of the globe and believe it's merely a coincidence? Is it possible that these creations are some kind of energetic portals which could be used to travel long distances in a short time? How advanced are the beings who are able to use such technologies and traverse the globe? Interestingly, the Gate of the Gods is but one of 5 unusual archaeological sites in close proximity around Lake Titicaca, high in what are now called the Andes Mountains. Travel just across the lake into modern-day Bolivia, and there stands the perplexing Gate of the Sun, a 10-foot-tall archway fashioned from a single piece of stone, resting seemingly in the middle of nowhere. Into this gate is carved the glowing face of the sun god, surrounded by a series of unusual inscriptions believed by some to possess astronomical and astrological significance. Over the years, many in the area have reported significant UFO activity near the gate, twinkling blue lights and glowing white discs, and there are some who believe the gate is a portal through which these UFOs travel. It's interesting to note that both the Gate of the Sun and the Gate of the Gods together with other unusual archaeological points in the area, are all constructed around Lake Titicaca. According to the creation myth of the area's ancient peoples, those who long predate the rise of the Inca Empire, Lake Titicaca was the cradle of human civilization, the place from which the god Kon-Tiki emerged, bringing human beings with him into this world. Another layer was added to the intrigue when, in 2000, archaeologists discovered an underwater temple at the heart of Lake Titicaca. How could such a thing have gotten there? The water levels of the lake have receded over time, but underwater now was underwater then. Further, could this temple, at the center of an ancient grid, tie together the area's mysterious gateways?